Record this.
Okay.
Good job.
For my slides, like, I don't have a set timer to time it, so can I just click it?
Whatever you like.
Okay. So, my presentation's on tennis, on Maria Sharapova, the mental game of tennis, and my own journey. So, for the outline of my presentation, I have an introduction, and then I'm going to talk about Maria Sharapova and her journey, and also where she is today. And then I'm going to talk about the mental game of tennis, and I connected that to what I've learned about it, but also about, in general, there's many books about it. And then I'm going to talk about my own journey and how I started playing tennis, and how I've developed during the years since I started playing, but also in particular this year playing for this team and going all the way to states. So my introduction is basically saying that tennis is a sport that not only requires physical skills, but requires a certain mental tenacity. Sure, you have to be athletic to win, but almost always the smarter player will win, not the fastest person or the player with the best serve. People sometimes underestimate how difficult tennis is because there is no physical contact, but it still requires strength and speed. Tennis is a fun recreational sport that is fun to play with family and friends, but is also super competitive, and many people play to win and to be the best they can be. My favorite player is Maria Sharapova for several reasons. I also hope to play college tennis, and if I work hard enough, I know that I can. Tennis is one of the sports that requires the most mental toughness out there. The mental game of tennis is something that many people talk about. This refers to a player's ability to play smart themselves, but also be able to read their opponent and react correspondingly. It also means you have the ability to not let the score affect you and to play smarter during critical points. So Maria Sharapova, these are just some quick facts about her. She was born in Russia she's an only child, and her parents are both very poor. So her dad moved her to the U.S. with only $700 in their account, and he took really low-paying jobs, including becoming a dishwasher for a school, and being a janitor just to be able to pay for her tennis lessons. And then at age 9, she enrolled in the tennis academy, and she had a scholarship. These are just more current facts about her. She's been #1 in the world, and she's currently #4. She's had a lot of commercial endorsements, and she had an injury in 2008 on her right shoulder, and she left for 10 months because of that, but she's now back. These are some quick pictures of her, in case you didn't recognize her. So her college adventure, her separation was the first exposure to the sport, and for her, that was when she was 2 and her father just handed her a tennis racket. They went out to the local park to play. They played almost every day, and she loved it. And from then on, she asked her father to take her out every single day to play. That was one of the only things she did in Russia because, for example, at her house they didn't have a TV, so she couldn't have viewed the sport on TV. So for supernatural aids, her main was her inner self. She had a lot of drive, determination, and dedication, and she wanted to get better. She wanted to play as much as she could. Another was her father, who was a big support, and he was her coach up until 2007 when she transferred to a more famous coach, but her father still goes to all of her matches and supports her, and also is her assistant coach. So her first progression was at 4 or 5, and she learned to serve and hit. Her forehand is her best shot. And she had another coach, and her veteran Russian coach was so impressed with her hand-eye coordination, and that's what most people noticed about her at a young age. Her first success was winning a tennis championship at 16. And it was the age 16 division, but she was only 13 years old. So she was competing against girls that had 3 or 4 more years of training than her. And her mastering of the new technique and her win truly defined her first crossing of the threshold. So now we're into initiation in the belly of the whale. She entered like the zone and she focused on tennis and focused on her goals. And she really wanted to win and get better. She's always been competitive, so whenever she would lose, one of her weaknesses would be when she was younger, she would cry every match that she lost, and she would really get down on herself and say she would quit, but then the next day she would just get back out there and play for hours. And she had a lot of willingness to enter the game, and she always made goals, and she had commitment, and she gave up other sports, and did not have many friends when she was growing up because she was always playing tennis. So for the initiation, now she's on to the rotor trials. She had many unsuccessful attempts. She would lose competitions as a junior, but when she became a pro, she lost a lot more because it's normal to lose. In 2005, she was world number 1 and won Wimbledon in 2004. And her win-loss record is 148 to 36, which is very good for a pro. And then she had a shoulder injury, which is out of her control, but that still set her back, and she was out and she dropped. She wasn't even in the top 20 when she wasn't playing. But her surgery worked and she got better. And she's currently number 4 and still recovering from her shoulder injury. So her ultimate boom was she had always made many goals as a child, but her big step out to becoming famous was winning Junior Wimbledon and the Australian Open for juniors. And that was her first Grand Slam title in 2004 when she won Wimbledon. And then after that she got known by people. She started to make a lot of money and people noticed her and got endorsement deals. So that was her big step out. Her crossing of the return threshold. She stopped competing for a while after her shoulder injury, but she thought about retiring because she's old for a tennis player. She's 24, which is usually about the age that tennis players retire, in their late 20s. So she thought about it, but she decided to train and return to play, which was a good decision for her. And she also started giving back to her community by helping disabled and sick kids learn how to play tennis. And she shares some of her knowledge about the game with her fans. She's writing a book currently, so she is starting to coach other people and not just play tennis. So for the return, her Master of the Two Worlds, it's very hard for professional athletes to often balance playing the sport and spending time with family and friends. And with her family, even though her father is no longer her coach, he still travels with her to every single one of her matches, and he still trains her and helps coach her. And she also trains with the sport every day while also going to physical therapy and working out every day to become fit and stay in shape. So she balances that time with her family and her friends and her social life. And last, the freedom to live. She passes on her knowledge and helps others, which is something that most professional athletes do, some more than others. She recently has her own line of candy called Sugar Boba, which she gives 80% of the proceeds to charity. She has her own charity in Russia too, to help poor kids like her when she was growing up, because when she was growing up she couldn't even afford tennis lessons. Her knowledge was also put to good use. What she learned wasn't wasted, and she's had a great career and made a really great name of herself when she started from nothing. So this is just why she's my favorite player. She's had a really great hero's journey. I truly think of her as a hero. She gave people a reason to remember her, especially because she didn't have the opportunities that other famous tennis players had as a child. She's smart, beautiful, athletic, determined, hardworking, and a really caring and compassionate person. She cares about her friends, her family, and her fans. So now to the mental game of tennis. The mental game of tennis is how you react and decide to play during a tennis match. And the death or rebirth moment in the monomyth is the moment the player decides to change their strategy or continue doing what they were doing. Most advanced players need to learn how to do this in every match, not just to win, but to also improve as a player.
You didn't let me interrupt for a second. Didn't Maria also, with her shoulder injury, with all the injuries that sidelined her, she really did go through some, uh, where she had to rethink what she was doing, her whole career. She had to put herself back on track, and she came back on top. So, yeah, she's a great example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the mental game, the separation or the call to adventure is you start a match with a strategy every game. In your warm up, you take observations about your player and your opponent, and you can decide how to play, whether you want to play defensively, offensively, rushing the net, or there's many other different strategies you can mix together, or just play a certain one. And the more experience you have, the better and smarter you'll play, and you have a greater chance of winning based on the strategy you choose that best suits your opponent. For your supernatural aid when playing a match, it's not all mental. Physical skill helps a lot, and athletic ability. And having a coach able to help you through the match, because during set changes, you're allowed to have a coach come up and talk to you, and those are all factors that can help during a match. Crossing the first threshold. Having a first big success the first few games is crossing the first threshold, even losing the first few crossing. You might be winning, you might be losing, or it might be a tie, it might be a really close match. So crossing that first threshold is after the first 4 or 5 games, you get to see where you are, and you can either choose to change your strategy or continue the same strategy based on the score or based on how you're feeling. So on to initiation and the belly of the whale. At this point in the match, you have to really decide how to play and commit to it. You can't change your strategy every single point, because that most likely will not work. And even if you were going to give up in your match, you have to commit to it. You can't just give up certain points and then try to win other points. And if you are changing your strategy or continuing to play the same, you have to stay focused and play smart and stay in the zone and really be determined to win, or to just continue to try your best, even if you know you're going to lose. The road to trials, so everyone makes mistakes, and how you handle the mistake is just shows to your opponent and gives you a greater chance of winning the match. So if you get down on yourself for a mistake, you're more likely to mess up the next point or make the same mistake over. But if you acknowledge your mistake and really continue to work on it and move on in the match and not make the same mistake again, that's how professionals play.
Nice.
So the ultimate boon is, one of them is when you are behind and you come back and start to win the match and take control. For example, I played a match this season. I lost the first set 6-0, so I didn't win one game the whole set, and I came back the second set, and I won the second set, and then we had to play a full third set, and I won the third set. So I ended up winning a match where the first set everyone thought it was a complete blowout. So in contrast, if you're winning and you continue to hold strong and win the second set, that is another example of the ultimate boon, because even if you're winning, you still have to continue to play your hardest, or else the opponent might come back and beat you. So onto the return, crossing the return threshold. Stopping doing whatever you're doing wrong is crossing the return threshold, when you take control of the match. Another is when you're playing your best but you're still losing. You just don't let the score get to you. You're not always going to win. There are going to be people that are just better players than you. They might have more experience. They might be having a really good day, and you might not be playing your best. Just not letting the score get to you and really continuing to try, and every single point is what matters. So the master of two worlds, when you win, some players let it get to them, and they have a huge ego. They think the next match will be easy for them, that they're better than they actually are. So keeping in mind a realistic view of yourself, and just having the balance of a player between mental strength and physical strength is really going to push you forward to master those two different types of strengths. And for the freedom to live, sharing your knowledge is important, and putting it to good use shows that you are a hero and you're going on a mental journey. one of the ways you can do that is sharing it with your teammates or players that aren't as good as you are or aren't as strong as you are. Some people have a huge ego and think of themselves better just because of the score, and I've played players that definitely have had that, and then they go into their next match and they lose just because they're so caught up in their ego. So what I've learned about the mental game is to never give up, to play realistically, to play smart, to make observations about your opponent, especially during warm-up, to know your strengths and weaknesses, to not let the score affect you, winning or losing, have fun and to not get stressed out. And nerves are good if you can control them, but if you let them get to you, then it's gonna affect your play. So from my journey, I've been playing tennis since I could walk. Both my parents play tennis, and they play in the United States Tennis Association on teams with ratings. They play on several different teams. And I compete for schools. I competed all through middle school and high school. And I've played in USTA matches for juniors. I've always loved tennis, and my parents are really glad that I play tennis because it's an interest we all share. We can always go out and play with each other. So for my separation or my call to adventure, my first exposure was when I was 3 years old, and my parents just took me to our local club to play tennis and to hit balls. And after that, I started taking Pee-wee classes at that club that we belonged to. And my coach told my parents that she could tell I had potential, I was athletic, and I had really good hand-eye coordination. So when you're a toddler, a lot of times you just miss the ball completely. But for me, I would always hit it regardless. My supernatural aid was mostly my dad, because he would always be the one to take me out to play because my mom would be busy working, or my dad works too, but he would always be the one to motivate me. And then Lindsay, who was my coach, my first coach ever when I was 3 or 4 years old, and she continued to be for the next 8 or 9 years. She also helped me get me motivated, and she helped me improve a lot as a player. And then my own determination was another factor of a supernatural aid. And my athletic abilities also helped me a lot.
This is inspiring us, by the way.
Thank you. So my crossing in the first festival was I won the Carmel Valley Tennis Championships, and that was a really big competition in Northern California. And there's a lot of tennis players in California, so it's not the same as playing in Utah. And I got second place the following year. As a 9-year-old in a 12 and under category. So I was playing people, there was a 10 and under category, but my coach decided to put me in the 12 and under category so I'd have more of a challenge. And I started learning a kick serve and a slice backhand, and that was a new technique that also helped me cross the first threshold. So on to initiation, the belly of the whale, I became motivated to do well and become a really good player. I had to quit horseback riding. I ended up selling my horse because I couldn't do that anymore because I was playing tennis every day. And surfing, I used to surf every morning, so I had to stop doing that as much too, to just pursue tennis. And my motivation and my hard work really got me to where I am today, and was able to compete successfully in really competitive tournaments. And I was open to learning new techniques and strategies, and that often helped me win and develop as a player. So the road of trials, I've had a lot of injuries. I broke some ribs horseback riding when I was 8 years old, and that set me out for a few months. And just other injuries, I had a fractured wrist, a torn meniscus, a sprained ankle, and all those injuries set me back, but I was good at recovering, and thankfully I got back to playing tennis. And also, I lost a lot of matches that I could have won, but when I was in middle school and growing up, my mental toughness lacked, so I wasn't able to completely have the mental tenacity to stay strong through matches. And I won some tough matches, but I had a tendency to lose matches that I started out behind in because my mental toughness was lacking. So if I was losing badly, I would get so frustrated I would give up. So my ultimate boon was when I won some big USTA competitions like the Carmel Valley one, and those boosted me forward and also got me noticed by other players and by even some teachers and famous tennis coaches. And then last year for school in California, I qualified for regionals, which is the whole entire San Francisco Bay Area, and that's a really big deal because we have a lot of really good players in that area. And I made it to the finals in regionals, and that was a really big deal because I had to play like 6 matches to make it to the finals, whereas here for the finals I had to win 3 to make it to the finals. And then this year at Wasatch, a huge deal for me was even like going to states and going to regionals. That was really exciting, and I never thought I was going to win. I never expected it. I just played my best, played every match. And then when I ended up winning, that was a really big deal for me. I felt really proud of myself for working hard. And it was something I didn't expect, but it was really great.
Fascinating.
So crossing the return threshold, I haven't stopped playing tennis obviously, but I'm taking a break right now for playing basketball here. But I continue to work hard and train for next year. And during the summer I play USCA competitions, so I'm also working towards that. And I started coaching as well. Last year at Woodside I was the captain for our tennis team, and I helped coach the girls that didn't have as much experience or just could improve in general. And this year also I helped some of the junior varsity players just learn how to new techniques and learn how to play tennis. So now onto the return, the master of the 2 worlds. I've learned to balance my time and become a master at time management. I balance my schoolwork with my sports, focusing on getting good grades and also doing my best in games and matches. Those are really my priorities here at school. And when I do have free time, I always try to spend time with my family and my dog especially because he has cancer and he's going to die soon. But not forgetting my friends as well. And my friends and family are also a great support system, and they support my tennis and playing. So for my freedom to live, passing on knowledge is really important to me. So during the summer, I teach the little toddlers at the Pee Wee clinic at the club I belong to. And I played in that same clinic when I was 4 or 5, so it's really great to help them. And I also try my best to help my teammates and my friends who have an interest in tennis or who just want to improve. Although I'm not a professional, I don't know everything. I love sharing like what I do know with them. And I also put my knowledge to good use, and I always try to improve. Like, I realize I'm not the best player in the world. I'm probably not going to be a professional tennis player, but I understand that I do know a lot and I do have a great ability in tennis and that I can share that knowledge with them. And then these are just some pictures of me playing tennis this year.
Wow.
And yeah, that's the end.
Wow, that was quite astonishing. Is that her